Why do you think you've not completely given up and just said game dev's not for me?
So burnout was kind of a combination of many different things coming together at a head. So I guess the first thing I would mention is that, I am autistic.
How has it been going back to working in like an industry, not on your own, after a couple years away?
Progress is being made, so it's not all bad.
You also are operating, as you've kind of alluded to, a pretty successful YouTube channel.
It's frustrating to me sometimes when I go look up a tutorial on something and I'm just like, what the hell did this guy do in between?
Welcome to the Dev Dream Podcast, featuring conversations to keep you and me inspired to continue the hard journey of making video games. Today, I talked to Jesse, aka CoderNunk, where we covered his journey with burnout and what it's been like to return to a full-time job, as well as the game he's currently working on that's been in his mind since high school. We also wrap it up with some great conversation about the greatest JRPGs of all time. I'm excited to share this conversation with you today, and if you enjoy it, please hit that subscribe button to let YouTube know that you did in fact like it. If you're already subscribed, you can hit the like button, and let's get straight to it. The first line of your YouTube description says game development isn't just a dream, it's a journey, and I loved that statement. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, because game dev has always been a dream of mine. I mean, at least since high school. And I really just wanted to make this game. And I really, I also wanted to see how I can help others achieve their dreams as well. Had a few setbacks. I'll get into that in a moment, but that's really just kind of the background. It's just it's always been a dream of mine. I grew up on video games. Video games are just kind of my lifeblood.
Yeah, have you read any of Brandon Sanderson's The Stormlight Archive, his big, massive series?
No, sadly, I haven't heard of that.
Gotcha. No worries. Well, it's a fantasy novel, and the first book, kind of like the main revelation that one of the main characters has, he calls it Journey Before Destination. And to kind of summarize it, it's basically saying the journey or how we get somewhere or the path we take to do something is just as important or maybe more important than the actual goal that it takes to get there. So how for you do you think about the journey you're on and finding meaning in that versus kind of the things you want to accomplish in game dev?
I really think the journey is everything in a way because, my journey has taken me in many different directions. When I was younger, the journey was really just learning the skills to make a game. And now it's okay, well, I have the skills, but I don't have the energy anymore. So it's how do I get myself back into it and still be happy with it? It's really interesting because it's it's a lot of self-growth as well.
Yeah, so we were chatting just a little bit before we started, and you mentioned that you hit a point of burnout. Now, before we talk about that, can you take me back to maybe those younger childhood years or pre-burnout? What was it about game dev that pulled you in and got you excited about it?
Well, ever since a very young age, my dad has introduced me to video games. So, I mean, I've had the original NES, Super Nintendo, N64, GameCube. I basically had every console out at the time, even Xbox and PlayStation. So I've played video games just pretty much my entire life. Played a lot of the classics, and just, I've always been excited about games. And then when it came to time to figure out what I wanted to do as my career, I had a bit of an epiphany. It was right around the summertime between 8th grade and 9th grade. And I was just if I love video games so much, why don't I try making them? So that was basically the sentence I remember in my head. So I went and researched. I found a program called Game Maker. And at that point, I just got hooked. I really loved playing around with game development. The drag and drop features were really useful for getting started and learning about the logic. And then eventually I learned how to program. So that's kind of where it all went.
Yeah, I think it's such a natural thing to love some kind of art form and then want to make it yourself. And I think that's just a natural human thing. I think that's kind of like, I mean, you specifically at a young age took it as like a career standpoint, which is really cool because that probably helped you give you some goals. But everybody, I think, that wants to make games for the most part starts with some kind of love of games. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, can you fast
Yeah.
forward us to 2022 when you started to experience some burnout? And what is it that now, 3 years later, why do you think you've not completely given up and just said game dev's not for me, despite experiencing that burnout?
Yeah, sure. So burnout was kind of a combination of many different things coming together at a head. So I guess the first thing I would mention is that, like, yeah, I am autistic. I'm not sure exactly what the percentage of our game developers are, but I would say that's helped me tremendously being engaged with game development. But one of the challenges of that is, of course, you have to mask in public a lot.
Mm.
You know, at the time, I was still very much involved in my career as a software engineer. I was fortunate enough to do well in that, but over time, it kind of just took a toll on me. And between that and just a lot of unresolved trauma issues that I've had growing up, just kind of led to a burnout. And that year in particular was also very stressful. Had a few deaths in the family and stuff like that. It was just,
Sorry to hear that.
that's when I decided, like, you know what, I need a change. So what I decided to do was I left my job. And then, luckily I had a nest egg saved up. So I spent some time, you know, after that trying to recover. So I can go more into it, but we'll circle back if that's what we want to do later.
Yeah. Can I ask you at what age, and if any of these questions, since we are talking about personal stuff, you want to cut the edit or not answer, totally fine. At what age did you get an autism diagnosis or a self-discovery that was something you were experiencing?
Yeah. So it was when I was really little. I think it's
Okay.
just because I didn't really talk. My mom was just like, "What's going on?"
Sure.
Um, and they said I had Asperger's syndrome. So that was what they called it back then. Now it's called autism spectrum disorder. Uh, but I would say I'm very fortunate to have that diagnosis because it helps me be who I am. There's a lot of people who don't realize they have it until their 30s, and they're just like, holy crap. Like,
Right.
it's so like I always knew I was a bit of a weird kid, right? Like I got obsessed with games and stuff like that. I would just be very fixated on certain things. Um, but to be honest with you, I've never had a problem with that. I've always embraced that side of me. It's just but transitioning into adulthood and into the workforce, it's like you kind of have to let go of some of that. And letting go of it kind of, made it a little bit difficult in some ways. Kind of lose that side of me. But I kind of need that side of me if I want to make games.
Yeah. In your job, were you working in games or software, or what kind of industry were you in?
Yeah, so I actually worked for an investment company. And as a matter of fact, I'm working there again. I actually got rehired there earlier this year. But
Oh, nice.
I do software engineering, a lot of cloud stuff. It's a it was a decision that was almost made for me. I like to say, but not completely. It was when I was talking with my stepdad. It was like, hey, I really want to get into game development. Like, I wanted to go to a university and learn that kind of stuff there, but he suggested that software engineering, like IT, was a more lucrative path and probably the easier path. So he's definitely right in that respect, and it's definitely been helpful, but it also kind of killed a lot of motivation I had too. So I was like, I really wish I could have had a professional, experience game development, because everything I know is basically hobby-ish. Um, and that's kind of, one of the reasons why I started my YouTube channel was because, like, I wanted to share with people what I learned as a hobbyist, because I don't feel like a lot of people get that professional experience. Like, I don't, but like, we still want to build some pretty impressive stuff. It's like, how do you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like with a lot of jobs, there's like this trade-off where the more potential you have, maybe the more soul-sucking it is. I'm sure that's not 100% true, but how has it been going back to working in like an industry, not on your own, after a couple years away?
It was a little bit tough because I went back into the job knowing that I still had a number of issues I'm still working on, which I'm still working on. I found out I had sleep apnea was one thing, which actually really kind of hit me. So I've been tired a lot of times. So I'm just like, I don't even know if I'm going to be awake to do the job. Like so that was a bit frustrating, but it turns out I'm doing okay. So I was allowed to ease in enough. So I'm grateful for that. Um, but now the goal is just how can I make things work while I'm, still working, and how can I help myself recover and that stuff. And, progress is being made. So it's not all bad.
I'm glad to hear you're experiencing some progress. Now, in addition to all of that, which is a big workload, you also are operating, as you've kind of alluded to, a pretty successful YouTube channel. And I would say it's mostly geared towards aspiring game devs, and it has a lot of tutorial style content. So, would you say that you've always kind of had this ability to teach people things?
Kind of. I think I just enjoy it. So in some ways I naturally can do it. Um, I feel like what's missing a lot in teaching is just the elaboration aspect. So that's what I feel like I can do is I can elaborate on concepts. Like it's frustrating to me sometimes when I go look up a tutorial on something and I'm just like, what the hell did this guy do in between? Like there might be like a button or something they hit that they didn't cover, you know. It's like I really try to hit on those points too, just so somebody can follow the workflow through entirely. Um, Not always successful in that, but it's what I try to do. I just try to be very thorough with my explanations.
Well, 30,000 subscribers are agreeing that your content is valuable and helpful. So that's already fantastic. And it seems like a lot of your most successful videos and a lot of your content in general is geared towards Blender and kind of modeling. So what about that do you enjoy?
Yeah, it's well, just a little bit of a fast forward is that I wanted to build my channel around game dev in general. I find that there's a challenge with that, just with the YouTube landscape these days. There are much YouTube channels that are niched down more specifically do better. So it's tough to try to introduce topics that just don't appeal to half my audience. Um, but yeah, I can get into that another time. But the reason the whole Blender thing basically happened because back in the pandemic, that's when I first learned how to use Blender, and I really wanted to just like take my game and make it 3D. So I spent a lot of time trying to make characters and learning how to do all that stuff. So I was like, why doesn't somebody just put out a complete guide that just like goes from start to finish, Blender to Godot, and you can make a model. So I really wanted to make that guide. So I did. It took a long time too. So in the meantime, because the guide took so long to make, I actually just ended up releasing a bunch of shorts to kind of fill the
Yeah.
gaps. And that actually ended up being one of the best things I could have done for the channel because some of those shorts actually went viral. A lot of them also just got like an average of 10,000 views, which ain't too bad. But like, it was just fun. Like, people were enjoying the short form content. So it was something that I wanted to keep doing.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now, my next question, funny enough, was leading into those viral shorts. So, one of them has over 2 million views, which is insanely viral. But you also talked about how I think game dev on YouTube is kind of intimidating right now. So, just because you look at the big channels and they mostly seem to have been started 3, 4, or 5 years ago. So, can you tell me about just like how you're thinking about YouTube and your channel and kind of where you're moving towards?
Yeah, I find that there's a lot of problems or a lot of challenges that I have to deal with my YouTube channel because my goal is like I want to hit 100K at some point. Like it doesn't matter exactly when, but like I want to get
Right.
there. It's the challenge is with what I want to make, which is a game dev complete channel. Like just like we talk about everything that goes into making a game. That doesn't really jive with YouTube's algorithm. It's
Mhm.
you know, and and I'm not trying to insult my audience because I love them, but it's like I've curated a Blender audience.
Yeah.
How do I translate that to Godot or like other topics that I want to talk about, even just like design? Um, it's tough because I can't blame them. They're just not interested. It's like, but how can I get them interested into those other topics as well? Um, I think other successful game dev channels have found a way to generalize or to at least niche down to something that just works with the algorithm. So I hate that I have to fight the YouTube algorithm on this, but it's like, I think it's just, I have to think about one way my strategy a little differently. I think typically with a lot of successful channels, they do well because their videos get promoted in their browse features and like the subscriptions feed, the home, and like the recommended. Um, my videos don't do that as well. Instead, my videos do well in search. Um, and then also, funny enough, with my shorts don't do as well in the shorts feed. They do much better in the browse features. So, like, if
Interesting.
somebody were to open up like the homepage on their computer, you could see my short as one of the recommended ones. So,
Fascinating.
so I had to think about it in that way. So, what I've found is that when I started working earlier this year, I really took about 6 or 7 months off of making content. And during that time, I still got plenty of views just from
Okay.
my content being there. So I have that advantage of that my content is evergreen. Um, so that's something I think I just have to lean into more.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to go kind of laser focused on search based content, or are you still wanting to try to sprinkle in maybe devlogs or maybe even extend to tutorials beyond Blender, or kind of what are you thinking?
I think it's really just going to be a war of attrition because my stuff isn't really super viral, at least exported with the few exceptions, but I have to basically just upload more content and over time it should start to sort itself out. Um, I always get jealous of those YouTubers who have like 20 videos and they have so many subscribers. I'm just like, how in the hell do they
How does
do
that
that?
happen?
Like, um, but it's like, I think it's just the way things are is like, I'm just going to have to just keep feeding it. It's like, but like, again, like it's, the purpose isn't really to like get, subscribers, although that's definitely a huge driver of mine. I'll have to admit it's, it's also just like, teaching people game development stuff that they might not know or helping somebody where another tutorial may have not done so, like hopefully through just being thorough on topics. So it's just giving people hope, like that's another thing too.
Yeah. Would you say that the goal for your channel at this point is to help you get back to a place where you can work for yourself in some kind of way? Or is it more of like an
Somewhat, yeah,
artistry kind of thing?
somewhat. There's some challenges too where I think after the burnout, my ability to focus has been pretty shot. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly what happened there. But like I do run into challenges where I'm working on my game and I'll hit a roadblock because I'll have to do something that's tedious or just something that I don't exactly know what to do, which does sometimes get it a little challenging because it's like I just have to kind of push through it. But I just found that part's be excruciatingly difficult, where in the past it wasn't as much. Um, so in some ways, it's like, while I'm still trying to get myself back into a place that I can work on my game more, the YouTube channel is there, to help support me in some senses too, and just keep the dream alive.
Yeah, it looked like to me after going through your website that you were kind of interested in building a business that supports other devs. Can you tell me about some of what you worked on or were hoping to build?
Yeah, ultimately that fell through, but when I was on my break, I wanted to try to take my career in a different direction. So that was an interim solution that I came up with where, like, how can I leverage my existing professional skills into a place where I'm interested in? So my hope was that I could start with like building websites for game developers or like
Hmm.
game development agencies. Um, because I can do web development. I've done like quite a bit of like software engineering in those kind of areas. So it's like I feel like I'm pretty adept at that stuff. So the challenge there was just like I couldn't find a customer base that
Hmm.
was interested in that kind of work. that also just had the money. Because
Mm.
when I was not working, I obviously needed to find a way to make money. Um, so it's like unfortunately, I have to try to look for clients that can pay. And, it's nothing against the people who can't, it's like, and a lot of indie developers are doing it on their own time. They just don't have the funds for it. It's like, I get that. Like, I really do. Um, but I was kind of in, a position where I just couldn't really do that. Um, So it was a little bit tough and it didn't really work out, but it was worth a try. I felt like, going through that process, trying to set up something, working with an actual agency to try to market, and it was fine. It was a learning experience. That being said, I still think I'm going to use that company later on as my studio, so I can repurpose it for that. So it's not all is lost.
Yeah, speaking of your future studio, can you tell me about what making games looks like for you right now?
Yeah, right now there's not a lot. It's kind of just balancing work and my own issues and YouTube and making games as well. So my goal is actually just kind of to make this RPG. It's a fairly large scope. It's like, I know everyone tells you to make small games. It's just like, I get that. It makes sense on paper, but I just can't think of small ideas, you know? But I've had this idea to make this RPG since high school. And it's like, I really just want to make this one game. Like, I don't care really as much about making other games as much as just making this one game. So that's just kind of the way I am, and that's what I'm going for. So, but I think with the get there, I want to spend some time on my own, at least building a prototype. So making sure that I have the design and the mechanics kind of at least illustrated in a game. And then once I get to that point and I can actually like have it appealing enough to others, that's when I'll probably start trying to form a team. It's and then at that point I can have people who are better at art than me, better at making music than me, better at like, other things. And we could put together something to hopefully make this game a reality. So that's kind of
Yeah, a lot of people, I'd say the big advice for people is to make small games, and I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. But then we also do see good examples of people that are successful, especially when they're like you and they have like a game that they're like, this just lives rent free in my head. Like I think it's the Lens Island developer. He's on YouTube. I cannot remember his name. But he did something similar. He's been working on a game for like 10 years and now has a team. And he was able to launch it into early access, which I think was how he got the team around him. I think he built a long time solo and got a nice like kind of prototype built, went into early access and it was successful. And then from there, now he's got those team pieces to help him round that out. So I think that's a viable plan for a lot of people. Now, as someone who has taken a couple years off of working in kind of a traditional job to work on your own projects, do you think it's a good idea for people to quit their full-time job and try to do game dev?
I think the answer here is it depends. I actually made a whole video on this and about my experience quitting job. It really depends on several factors. It's like, one, how much money do you have? How much is your cost of living? That's like a logistical thing. But what is your mental state? Like, my mental state was pretty rough. So I quit the job. Like, yes, I wanted to work on my games. Like, I told myself in my head, like, this is what I'm going to do with my time. But the reality was just like, I still have so much work to do mentally that I just didn't accomplish quite what I was looking to do. But at the same time, I accomplished something different, which was just like life changing. So I don't have any regrets with doing it. It was a very eye opening experience for me, but it depends on what your goals are. And I also think too, it's like if someone feels like they're healthy, they got a very stable, solution, then that's probably a good idea to take some time off and work on your game. Maybe looking to see if your job gives you like other things that you could do before you just quit. But maybe there's like some ways you take time off without pay or something like that. Um, but like Yeah, I think it's just like you're not going to get as far as you want if you're really burnt out too. But at that point, it's like you're quitting because you burnt out, not because you're wanting to make games, which is what's
Right.
something I didn't realize until it was too late. But yeah, it's fine. I think I don't think there's any shame in quitting your job. Just make sure you have a backup plan. Like, make sure, like,
Hmm.
at least for me, like, I was fortunate enough that I did, well enough for my company that they're like, hey, if you want to come back, just let us know. Like, so I did. Um, but yeah, finding a job is actually getting a lot harder these days too. So it's just something to think about too. Just make sure you have a backup plan.
Yeah, there's a lot of good advice that you just gave there and a lot of things to consider. For you, in your mental health, what were some pros and cons of working the corporate job versus working solo? Because I think there's like I'm sensing this weird like I can't think of the word, but like you're burnt out because your job is maybe not good. But then if you leave your job, well, now you're leaving a lot of safety, and so maybe that will lead to new issues. So just what was your experience and the pros and
Yeah.
cons of that?
Yeah, it was definitely a pendulum there. Like, uh, to say this is kind of like a bit of a bit strange, but when I was working in a job for it was like 7 years or so before I quit the first time, was I a lot of the time it served as a distraction from the issues that I had to deal with in my life. Yeah, some relationship issues I had, some just other insecurities and stuff like that, just some general things like that. Like for a long time, just working was a distraction to that. Like I could just work and I was like, okay, look, I'm doing normal adult things, no one could bother me. Right. Um, but when I had decided to quit, that's when it was like I had to face those things head on. So it kind of created different problems. But there's also, but to get back to your question, the solo versus working in a team thing, I've always wanted to work solo because I'm just kind of a lone person. Like I like to spend time by myself. I was like, oh, I really like to work solo. But the reality is that like there's so much I don't know that like trying to figure out like, yeah, I could research stuff and sometimes come up with a solution, but it's like, what's the industry standard? Like, it'd be really cool to work with actual professionals who knew stuff about like game development that like I don't know or can't really find on the internet. Um, the But working in a corporate environment where it's like we're all software engineers, so it's like we know how to get our job done. It's a lot
Yep.
easier to like get work done in an environment with a team. So it's my focus has shifted more from like, okay, I was just going to, instead of being just like a full on solo dev, to eventually I want to put a team together. Um, that's my hope for the future. But for now, I'm going to stay solo dev because there's still a number of things I'd like to get done first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a layer that I hadn't really considered because I also am a super introverted person. And so I'm like, I would love to work by myself. But I think I probably take for granted just even some of the little social interactions that are nice about working at a company. But especially just like if you're going to do game dev, there is a lot of unknown out there. And especially if you're truly solo, then it's only the internet. Like that's your only friend to help you solve these problems. Um, now, jumping topics just a little bit, can you kind of take me through a little bit of your journey in game dev and just like the things you've made kind of over the years and how you're now in this place where you're, a blender slash modeling expert?
Oh, sure. It's my very first exposure to game development was Game Maker. I know I mentioned that a little bit earlier. And I did that for several years, but most of my projects were really just kind of like small little proof of concept type things. I was like, okay, I had this idea for a game. Let me make it real quick. Most of them were just like clones of games I've already played. I was like, I play video games and I still do to this day. It's just like, how would they program this thing? So I did a lot of that stuff when I was a kid. So, I made platformer game, but of course I lacked originality back then. I always used other IP as like my
Yeah.
characters in the games. So I was like, I got so when I talked to like my stepdad about it, he's like, why don't you make your own characters? And I was like, I didn't know what to do at first, but eventually I was able to create some of my own. So that's kind of where it led into this RPG I want to make. I eventually ended up creating this whole universe in my head with like characters, the original characters, and I was like, oh, cool. So how do I make this game interesting? So originally it was like a Mario and Luigi clone, like with the way the combat system worked. But eventually I was like trying to think of ways to make it a bit more unique. So I came up with this system called Ara, which I could talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
But it's but after that, it's like a lot of stuff kind of worked toward making that particular project. In college, early, late high school, college, that's when I learned Flash because at the time Flash was still big, and it was like kind of a good medium to like make games. Of course, my game was 2D at that point, but I learned how to make games in Flash. And I made some other projects too. I made one that was like a golf game, like a top-down golf game. I made some more platformers. Um, but it was really until college where I got into Unity a little bit, and I didn't like Unity super a lot. So it was, and then I went to work full time, and I didn't really touch game development until like the pandemic. And then that's when I learned about Godot, and I was like, oh, I got to try out Godot. And I just love Godot because Godot is intuitive. Like, I feel like Godot is what Unity should have been, like with the way it's designed. Like prefabs, nah, I'm using scenes. Like it's but that's just my opinion. No, nothing against Unity developers. Like that's just kind of why I went into Godot. It's like, and there's also that part of me too, I guess you can call it ego thing, but like I really wanted to get into a project that is like developing, and I wanted to see how I can help shape Godot somewhat. Like what kind of ways can I help Godot evolve? Like, so if I'm making such a big game, it's like it could be cool to see it done in Godot. And it's like, oh, people will be like, oh, I can make this big game in Godot. Like, because there's a lot of stigma in Godot where it's like, it's only for these small 2D games. It's like, that's not really the case anymore.
Mhm.
Like, it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, and I think we're kind of just waiting to see someone make a massive game with it, and I think it seems like it's getting close to that point where that's possible.
Yeah.
Tell me about this system in your RPG in your head that will make it unique as much as you want. If you don't have to spoil your ideas if you don't want to go there, but
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. A lot of it's public now at this point, but it's the idea here was that I wanted to create so that you know the concept of aura, right? Like the like you have like this kind of like energy radiating from you. It takes different colors. It's like it kind of describes like you see somebody who's just seems like really off because like they have this dark black aura around them. Like so I kind of like unoriginally borrowed that concept and I called it Ara, which is just ARRA, right? But it's eventually evolved into something a bit more unique. In the sense that now Ara kind of takes this form of mind, body, and spirit. So loosely Buddhism, I guess. But like the idea here is that your character progression depends largely on how you invest your Ara into your character. So if you invest into the body, they become more physically oriented. Like they're good at doing a lot of damage with like physical attacks. If they invest into spirit, they do better with like elemental damage and like spiritual things. And then like mind is like mind damage, like psychic type stuff. Or the way I kind of divvied it up in the game is like body is your weapon attacks, spirits your elemental like magic attacks, and mind is like your debuffs, like your buffs and debuffs kind of thing. That was the idea. And then I also changed the stats up a little bit to reflect those three coordinates a bit more. So if you've probably seen this picture online, but like I call it the RPG triangle. So your red is your fighter, and that's like body. Your mind is your mage. That's like, actually in this case, I've rearranged it. So spirit is your mage, and then mind is your rogue. So like, if you kind of think about it as like when you invest into those things, the characters kind of go more in those directions. So what ultimately ends up in is that you can see that your character's progression could be different based on like how you invest in those.
Yeah, that's really
Or
cool.
you can
Kind of
combine
connecting
them
it.
and get synergies. Yeah.
Yes, connecting it to those kind of like D&D archetypes definitely helps me envision it. Are you building like a JRPG where you have like teams, or is this like a solo RPG, or what's your vision for it?
It's a JRPG. There's about 9 or so characters that are playable.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
But I absolutely is still kind of working through like actually making their character models and all that stuff too. But like I've focused a lot on one character. You've probably seen her quite a bit on my channel, but her name's Kyla. She's a blonde hair girl. But she's one of the main characters, and she's her thing is that she's the only character in the game that can revive. Um, she also has healing capabilities, and she also has, she uses a bow as her main weapon. So she's a very passive character. But her strength lies in the fact that she's a good healer, right? So even if her stats are lower, she's a good healer, and then that can work with other characters in the party as well, who might be more damage oriented.
What JRPGs would you say you're most inspired by?
There's a lot. I really love JRPGs. It's my favorite genre of video game. But there's quite a bit. So I mean, Mario and Luigi was the first one that really kind of started, but it's moved a little bit away from that. But just name a few, like Final Fantasy VII is always a good one. Pokemon in some ways always has a way. Fire Emblem is another one. And most recently, I actually replayed Chrono Cross, and I realized a lot of DNA from that game is present in mine too. So some things, and there's many more.
Yeah, super cool. So I did my research, and I know you're a JRPG fan. So I prepared two little just like kind of fun games for us to play. So first off, just a thought experiment. We are going to craft with your answers the perfect JRPG, if you're willing. So we got 5 categories, and you can pick.
Yeah.
You have to pick a different game to grab for each category. You cannot duplicate. So we have characters, combat system, world, art, and then for story, we'll just say like the author. So you get an original story, but a game that you get the same writing team for. So
Yeah.
does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so what game are we going for characters?
Characters. That's a great one. I think Final Fantasy VII is the answer here. I think that cast is just so well rounded in the way they're designed. Like even just their physical designs, like there's just so diverse. And also just the way. Yeah, I just think that cast is just the most memorable to me. I think.
Yeah, it's a fan favorite for a reason. All right, let's go combat system. You could say / progression system, however you want to think about it.
Yeah, so this is a good one. So combat system, progression system. So I actually kind of think combat systems. I still like turn-based games a lot.
Same.
Although my progression system in my game is very, much more complicated, but I'm thinking just a really simple one. How about Golden Sun?
Love it. And Golden Sun, that's the one, right? I think I've played this where you have like these orbs that kind of like change the combat. Is that the right one? Or am I thinking of a different game?
Well,
or like
they have
in your
a thing
equipment?
called the Yins that you equip to your character.
The Jin, yes. That's what I'm thinking of. Yes. Super fun combat system.
Yeah.
Okay, now what about the world?
The world. Okay, give me a second on this one.
Yeah.
So what game has the best world? Oh man. And we're not doubling up, so I can't say Final Fantasy again. It's like I actually do like a lot of the old world maps and the way they did those. I could even say I really like games that don't necessarily stick to like one timeline. Like there's a lot of games that are like medieval focused or like like I like a combination of that. Like I don't care if it breaks immersion or if it's like reality bending, but like if the world is designed in a way such that those things can coexist, that's really cool to me. I mean, I would say something along the lines like Final Fantasy X, maybe, or if we even go back to Chrono Cross in this one, because that game has like a 2-world kind of split where you can go. It's like the same world but different timelines. Like you go Like you have your home world where like some things are good and some things are bad. You go to another world and it's all flipped. It's like really cool. So, but it's a small world. It's like it's not super expansive. It's not huge. Um, but like it, but they do it well enough that it's interesting when you go to the same area in both timelines.
Yeah, so we'll go Chrono Cross for world. What about
Yeah,
art style?
art style. I'm kind of blanking on this one, but like I like to say Okami, but that's not a JRPG. How
Sure.
about Tales of Vesperia? Have you heard of that
Okay.
game?
I have heard
Um,
of that game. I have not
it's a
played it,
toon
but
shaded
I
game. It's a very simple toon shaded art style.
Mhm.
I like it.
I do like the toon shaded art style. I think that's really good. And then lastly, just like a game that you would draw inspiration from for story. Not take the same story, but same author, same vibes, kind of like that.
So this is a recent game, but how about Clair Obscur Expedition 33?
Okay, nice.
So it's that game has a very interesting storyline that I think like kind of jives with what I was kind of do. Like how both there's always like a hook at the end of Act 1 and Act 2. Like it's not just like the big thing event happens and then like
Right.
everything goes downhill. It's like the story kind of kept itself interesting throughout.
Yeah, that's on
And
my
I find
list
a
of
lot of
games.
parallels to the story I'm writing for my game from that game too. So it kind of works out.
Yeah. Expedition 33 is on my list of games I still need to play. I'm so confident I would love it. So your final perfect JRPG would be the characters of Final Fantasy VII with combat system of Golden Sun, the world of Chrono Cross, an art style from Tales of Vesperia, and then a story like Expedition 33. That would be a banger of a game. That would be sick.
Yeah, the tracks.
That's awesome. Okay, and then one other tiny little mini game I would love to do. This one will go a little faster. I just want you to blind rank these 5 random JRPGs I grabbed. So I'm going to tell you one, and without knowing the others, you're going to rank it 1 through 5, and then we'll see where you end up at the end. Make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
All right, and if you haven't played them, just give me a vibe check. It's all right.
All right.
Okay, starting off with Chrono Trigger.
So you know what? This is the funniest thing in the world. But I've played Chrono Cross. I have not played Chrono Trigger.
Okay,
I don't know
hilarious.
how this happened, but this is just the way. But I know how good Chrono Trigger is based on what people say. So I will say that's probably number 2.
Okay, we're going to go number 2. All right, next game, Final Fantasy VII.
So I'm going to put that number 1.
Okay. Is that like an all-timer game for you?
Oh, yeah, it's one of my favorite games of all time.
Okay. All right, next, Sea of Stars.
So I have not played it either, but I am familiar with it. I'm familiar with the concept of it. I've heard a lot of mixed things about this one, but it's like I know it was done by a team of indie developers, and it's like it looks like a really well packaged game. But I think so based on what I know, I'll put it at number 4.
Okay, that's fair. It's the indie game, so it's not going to be the same as some of the others, but it's known for its good art style. But yeah, somewhat mixed reviews. Okay, Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Shit, you should have mentioned this one earlier.
That's the whole point. That's the joke.
That would be my number 2, but we'll put it in 3.
Okay.
It slots
Okay.
3 fine.
Yeah, we'll debrief at the end and see where you would put them otherwise. And then lastly, that leaves as number 5, Dragon Quest 11.
Okay, I haven't played Dragon Quest 11 either.
Okay.
So
Sure. Well, then that one's fair. So your list ended up blindly ranked number 1 through 5, Final Fantasy VII, Chrono Trigger, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Sea of Stars, and then Dragon Quest 11. It sounds like you have opinions about Xenoblade 3.
I love Xenoblade. I like the whole series. Yeah. Although X is my favorite of the 4 games, I do like all of them.
Yeah, big take. So I've played all of them. I love them. My friend luckily got me into them just like 2 or 3 years ago, and I've since played them all. What is your rank of favorites of just Xenoblade?
I think it's X first, then 2, then 3, then 1.
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting list. So X, for anybody that hasn't played the Xeno games, X is kind of a different vibe than 1, 2, and 3. What about X did you love?
It's really hard to explain on paper because like I don't generally love open world games, but there was just something about this game that just hooked me and I just kept playing it. It was like I think I just really like the combination, the combat system. I like the mobility in the game. Like, I feel like a lot of open world games struggle with like making your characters move fast enough around the world. Like Xenoblade X does not do, like
Yeah.
their sprint speed is so fast. It's like,
Mm.
and it's just like this feeling like the just having a lot to do, and like the monsters are really cool. The monster design, the world design is really cool too. Um, I don't know. I just love the game to bits. Like it's it's awesome.
Yeah, I had a similar experience to you. I was playing and I'm like, it's good, but I just couldn't stop playing it. Like there's
Yeah.
something about the loop that just it got me.
Yeah.
And looking back, I'm like, I can't name one thing, but I think it's maybe just that like everything is so good and seamless and like nothing really feels super clunky. And I like the story as well. Like the story is not the
Yeah.
biggest part of the game, but I actually was motivated to get to the end of it and I liked it. So,
Yeah, for sure. Like it's definitely the weakest of the four games story wise, but like it's not
right.
bad.
Yeah.
It's
Um, what for you about why is 2 ahead of 3 for you? I think that would not be a common opinion, maybe.
yeah, it's two also came out a really good time. It came out like when the Switch 1 came out, so it was like just really good time. It's I really think the combat system's the best in two. I
Interesting.
think like with the blades system, it felt good. Like one and X have really good combat systems, but like the way you have to kind of like pan the screen for your arts is a little bit cumbersome. Two fix
Yeah.
that, and it's like all mapped to buttons, and it
Right.
like there's just so much weight to their attacks too. Like when they hit someone, you can really feel it
Mm.
in two. Like it like the rhythm's so much better, I think.
Yeah,
And I mean the story's really good too. I think like with I like the art style as well.
it is.
It's I like the art style of three as well, but there's just something about twos that was just kind of like much more appealing, I think. And then
Yeah.
like the story is really good because it's a lot more heartfelt, I think, too.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 has a lot to love, and I think I agree with the on-screen combat I think was the best. I did prefer number three's progression system though, as opposed to the blades. You liked having the blades more than the kind of like job system?
I don't know. There are a lot of flaws with the blade system, but I overall was like fine. Like once you got the ones you wanted, it was not a
Yeah.
problem really. Um, the job system, I didn't love the job system, but it was fine. Like
Okay.
I still felt like three was a great game. Its combat was really fun too, but like I don't know, the job system was like kind of strange for a Xenoblade game. I don't know.
That's fair. Yeah, I
Um,
appreciated it just because I liked the variety, but I can see how it can feel out of place. So,
yeah, I
and
do
then
think three had the best storytelling though.
I
Um,
loved the story for 3. I thought it was
yeah,
so good. Yeah. The ending, yeah, just was also just wrapped it up nicely and made me feel motivated and sad all at the same time.
yes, yeah.
It was so
The
good.
climax was so good. Like
Yeah,
the part where that was just
yeah,
incredible.
payoffs were worth it. And
Yeah,
then for 2, I kind of actually enjoy gotcha games, so the blade
yeah,
system was kind of built for me. I actually like to have like one gotcha game at a time going on just for fun.
yeah.
So
I like the fact that it was like a gotcha game, but you didn't have to spend like real world money to like actually commit to it. So
yeah,
you
and
just
then
paid the $60 for the game, and it's like, all
yes,
right, well,
exactly, exactly,
so like
and then
really not a lot of risk.
right, yeah, and then just to give one a little bit of love, I think one had my favorite twist of any game in the
Yes,
story.
I agree.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
no,
I
I loved one as well. It's just like
right,
of the four games, I really just can't rank it above the others. But
yeah,
like it's still just fantastic game. Great twist and the great storytelling too. Like I think I just edged three just above it a little bit, but like the storytelling
yep.
was really good.
Yeah,
Um
I wouldn't be surprised if some people's favorite was number one. But it
yeah,
does feel like a series where they learned from each game and built on it each time, and that just
yes,
leads to a good start not being quite as good.
right.
So, okay, well, that is wrapping up the end of my questions. Now before you go, I'll end you with one thing. So I've made this Dev Dream podcast mostly to inspire myself to hear from cool devs, but what would you say at this stage of life for you is your dream in terms of game dev?
I do think my dream is just to get this game made at some point, somehow, some way. Um I don't see myself being in a career as a game developer. Like, it's a stressful job. I don't have a lot of like inspirations outside of this one game. So I'd be perfectly fine if I got the team together. We made this game and it was a hit, hopefully. and and that was really kind of the end of it. Like, could maybe make a sequel if it was that good or something, but like, it's really just, I feel like my whole life story is wrapped up in this game. Like, even the way I'm
Yeah.
telling the story and the way characters are based, it's like I want to give people an opportunity to feel like they're being heard. Just like as, I want it to be, so hoping I could tell through the story is just like, people like, there's a lot of themes of like, dreams and reality is like neurodivergence, that kind of stuff too. So it's I just really hope that people would play this game and feel like they can relate to it and get that message across.
Yeah, well, Jesse, that's a super fun dream. Years down the line, when I see an ad for the game with Aura in it, I'll know to sign up. I'll be one of the first to buy it. It sounds really cool. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I really enjoyed this chat.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.